Hour 2 Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Frankie Corrado, Leafs in Seattle tonight. Mitch Marner returning. Anthony Stolarz making his return. He hasn't played in almost 2 months, 8 weeks. And
that's a dicey start. It's kind of an anxious start. Like, don't you think, Frankie? Mm-hmm. Hayes, you watch in the first period, and it's like, what's it going to do? What's it going to look like?
Yeah.
I mean, we should be used to it. We've been doing it for 10 years in this city, watching goalies.
I do find it weird, though, that you come back just to go on a leave again, right? Like, I know he's taking a lot of time, and you're going to play, and then everyone's going to go on a break. It's like, I don't know. Do you want to ramp it up just to bring it back down again, or do you just want to just keep it going all the way through, and then you come back after the break, and you're like, I have never been more ready to play in my life, and I'm just not worried about anything.
Yeah, there is a what's the point element to the start tonight.
As far as what?
Well, like Frankie's saying, the Four Nations starts as of Saturday night. The Leafs have 2 games left, and they're off for 2 weeks.
Maybe you're right. It's like...
Yeah, like I guess, if you're a competitor, he's been off for a long time. He's definitely ready to play. They're not forcing him back for any reason.
He's been on, exactly.
So at the same time, it's like, okay, maybe you want to get one out of the way.
Yeah,
and then,
one in the chamber for the mental.
Exactly, and that I think that could have a real benefit. And we'll ask Panger that. Darren Pang will join us here in a moment. How much of it is just simply a psychological hurdle you have to overcome after missing so much time in net? Right.
Yeah.
So, and Stolarz, prior to the injury, like, it is amazing how quickly 2 months can go by and all these different things can transpire. He was so good before he got hurt, and I think he was their team MVP prior to getting injured. You can make the argument it was Marner, maybe Willie, maybe Tanev, but the numbers he was putting up, the fact that Wall missed the first couple weeks of the year, he was phenomenal for them. And they had scoring issues at times when he was in net, and they won 1-0 or 2-1 or 3-2. And I'm pulling for the guy because they need him, especially with jockeying for positions. Like, Wall's not going to play every night. I think Wall did a really good job of staying healthy, which is a crazy thing to say, but that's 2025.
It's also the reality for him.
Yes, for him.
His reality.
For him, for sure. And a lot of athletes and a lot of goalies and – can you stay healthy for 2 months when you really need to? He did it. He did his job. They stayed well above water, and now you got Stolarz in net tonight. And I am curious to see what he brings. Seattle's not a great team. They're not having a good year.
Excited about the super line?
This is what I see happening here. So the super line is Marner, Tavares, and Nylander tonight, which means Nyes, Matthews, and Domi. I do think, and we've been saying it all year, Domi's not going to play center in the playoffs unless they have multiple injuries. I don't think they see him that way. He was at his best last year when he moved to the wing, and particularly on the wing with Austin Matthews. Statistically, Matthews and Marner have actually been kind of better when they've been split up. What's going to happen here, if this works, is Nylander is going to move to a third line. That's what's going to happen.
It's like Groundhog Day. Don't we do this every year?
And it's always Willie that moves.
Conversation.
It's always Nylander, and Nylander will be playing with Pontus Holmberg and Bobby McMahon on Saturday night in Vancouver. That's what's going to happen. Mark my words. Because Mitch always plays with one of Austin or John, and if Domi's going to stay with Matthews, then eventually they'll spread the wealth and Willie will move down. It's going to happen.
It's another example of how Willie's perfect for Toronto. Yeah, throw me around the lineup wherever you want. I
go down there,
playing, and then you'll put me back up, and I'll go score again.
He'll rip home 2 on Saturday night playing with Pontus and Patches, and it'll be all good. All right, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline, here he is from the NHL on TNT, Darren Pang. How you doing, Panger? Uh-oh. Nothing from Panger. Are we trying to do the FaceTime thing, Doogie? There he is.
There he is, Panger.
There he is. How we doing?
I'm doing really good. I was just reminiscing about how big I was when I played.
Oh, yes. There it is. Any load management during your playing days, Panger, or what?
Are the nets the same size today as they were back then?
Panger, how do you think on that, serious question, with that gear and the helmet and the whole routine, how do you think you would absorb OV one-timers, like right to the groin / inner thigh area. Like, that would rip your leg right off your body.
Straight to the hospital.
Hold on. I got to get an old mask then. Hang on.
Yes.
There we go. All right, there we go.
Yeah.
Let's see how that would go there, dog. Look at the inside of this thing.
No way.
Man.
Terrifying.
Weathered. Yeah, an OV one-timer off that. That thing's demolished. Demolished.
Yeah, I thought I'd bring entertainment to the show this morning. Based on overly analyzing so many things as we all do this time of year. But how would I do, O-Dog? That's a really good question. He would find holes after holes after holes and blow them through me. I think there's no question about that. I'm not naive enough to think that would be a big issue. That one timer from that side, the best one timer that I ever faced, and he was awfully good, was Brett Hull. But man, Brett Hull didn't blow it through you. He just scored on you. I think OV finds a way, right, with that velocity, and he always hits the net, that it just would squeak through me. I mean, our pants were just regular kind of pants. I think my sweater. I was
right in the middle of the I was right in the middle of the transition, Panger. Like it's no disrespect to the goaltenders. It was just a visual for me. But when I was going down on Chris Terreri or Billington, I would look and I'm like, there's a lot of stuff to shoot at there. But at the end of it, where I was looking at Roberto Luongo, it's like there is nothing. I mean, you're between the benches a lot. Both you guys are. These goaltenders are all 6'6", and you come down the wing and you're looking for something. There's nothing. Yeah. That's what makes the special goal scorers, the guys that if they get a one-timer pass, it's under the bar, regardless of the goaltender, regardless of how quick they get across. There's about 10 guys in the league that are automatic, and that's it. Everyone's got to bang it in and slash and hack and whack in front of the net.
And Panger, you know what's crazy? Right. Like you watch the game, and then the puck will be in the offensive zone, and you're there, and you're like, I swear that goalie's been like on one knee or down for the last 25 seconds because their shoulders are still at the crossbar, so they don't have to waste that movement. They're down a lot already.
Yeah, they are. I think they waste a lot of time on their knees, but I can see that if you're a long guy. I talked to Ben Bishop a lot about this, and he was almost 6'8", and his back hurt. I mean, that's just quite simply his back hurts, so it's easier to stay on his knees and just push side to side. Hey, but O-Dog, listen, here's what Terreri and Craig Billington, let me see some of the guys. I guess Van Beesbrook, Mike Vernon, those are probably guys you're thinking about. Al Bester, that era. See, what we did was we tricked you, O-Dog. See, we made you think that this was this net, that you had all this time and space, and then we sucked you right into that area. And then
I don't think that was it. I really don't think that was it, Panger. That's a great idea, but that wasn't it.
And then, see the big
I don't need
guys,
to fool you on national TV, but that wasn't it.
the big guys, they're 6'6", and then they go into a reverse VH on a bad angle and give up a goal, and they look small. Yeah. So you pick your poison.
Well,
I'll tell you what, Panger. The one thing I do appreciate about the shooters is the reverse V8 or standing there sitting on one knee or whatever. They're smart enough over the years. They're like, I don't care what you do. I'm ripping it right over your ears and right under the bar. And somebody's got to look at that because they look stupid when they don't stand up and they're just crouched down and a guy just rips a wrister right from the goal line. It's the shooters. You can only take so much where they're like, we got to find a way, and they found a way.
And O-Dog, our goal when we played was not to get hit in the face. Like, why would I want to get hit in the shoulder, the collarbone, the side of your face, and expose yourself to that? That's crazy to me. Goalies that headbutt pucks, I'm like, man, that's the last thing I want to do is get hit in the head with a puck. So, yeah, there's a different philosophy. I thought we were weird. Man, they're weirder now. Yeah,
they are strange now. They're really strange with Darren Pang. And we were talking about Anthony Stolarz making his return tonight. And, coming off, he's been out for 8 weeks. He had the surgery done, and he's had the lower body injury. So he's going to play tonight. He'll back up Saturday. I would presume he backs up Saturday in Vancouver, and then he's going to take 2 weeks off. So is this about the psychological hurdle? Can you take us through that mentality, Panger? Like a goalie coming off an injury, especially a knee injury, going into a game like this, like how much of the psychological hurdle exists where it's like you got to trust yourself, do it, get through it, and then you can breathe afterwards?
I think, I tell you what, Hazy, I think if you don't have any experience in injuries, it's a lot more difficult. I think if you have experience, and from what I understand, that Anthony's had experience with knee issues, whether that's a cartilage, whether that's, there's something in there that he has had in the past. So in saying that, I think it'll be okay for him to come back because there's a certain amount of confidence that you have when you've done it before, whereas there's a certain amount of anxiety that you have naturally if you haven't had it before. So I came back from a torn hamstring, like right off my butt. And I came back and I got to tell you, I was really hesitant. I'd never had an injury like that before, and I was afraid to do a stretch. I was afraid to butterfly. And then funny thing is, I tore an ACL. I was gone all year. I came back into the net 1 full year later than when I injured that ACL, and it was in the minors. And I get there's a difference in play, and I got a shutout. Like figure that out. Everything seemed so slow, and everything was coming at me like so slow. And I felt confident. My knee was fixed. I had a brace on it, but so again, going back to it, it depends on the injury. But I would have to think again, reiterating. I think Anthony's been around long enough, and he's experienced enough in that kind of injury to know that he can bounce back from that.
Panger, I think now
and then get some rest.
Well, and now, you have Wall playing well. Stolarz was playing really well before he got hurt. So both these guys, like, how do you handle the rotation when they're back healthy? Is it one of those things you look at Washington and say it worked for them just going 50-50 alternating starts? Or do you feel like you have to kind of, give one guy a week, the other guy a week? What's the best way of doing that when two guys have played so well this year?
I feel like there's an opportunity for the coaches to ease the player that's been injured. If things are going well without that player, why throw him into circumstances that other players have excelled in while that player is gone? For right now, personally, it's great to get Anthony into the net. That's good just before the break. But for me, it's not a rotation based business when a player's been out that long. It's Wall's net for me. And then there's going to be a time where Joseph Wall struggles. It happens. It's inevitable. And then when that does happen, it'll be midway through the second period. Craig Berube's going to say, well, this is my time to make a change in the net. And then it's going to be the opportunity for Anthony to get into the net. And then they can either get in a rotation or Anthony takes the net over. So, but right now, I don't like just throwing the guy right back in there in the circumstance that he was prior to, for me, unless it's a big struggle and unless desperately, man, I need this goalie to come in here and change our game up. We need that energy or we need that excitement from that player. But otherwise, don't be in a hurry. Here in Chicago, I got to tell you, we had a couple of players just prior to the Winter Classic. Seth Jones had a broken foot. He tried to get back. Mrazek tried to get back for the Winter Classic, and I think looking back on it, I don't think it was right to throw him into the same situation that he was before. The power play was working without him. The minutes were being handled by other guys like Alex Vlasic, and I think the team took a bit of a step back just because everybody was anxious to throw player A and player B right into the exact same spot when they weren't up to speed with what was going on with the players that were having success while they were gone.
Panger, the question we have with the tandem moving forward, I think for the rest of the regular season, they're most likely going to figure it out. But one of these guys, has got to play every other night if they want to go where they want to go for 2 months. So how do you pick that guy by the end of the year when none of them have done it in the past? None of them have a sample size where they've been a true number one, and it's really critical, and there's a lot of intense pressure, and it's non-negotiable. Where it's like you got to go in there and do it. This isn't where you can do a trial, but if you stink, then you're out of the net. So how would you handle that come playoff time?
Yeah, I would handle it as if down the stretch, exactly which guy's going. Dog, like you. For me, it's like Joseph Wall went into the net when Samsonov struggled, if I'm not mistaken, a few years ago with the pressure on him, and he performed very, very well in his first time.
I know, Panger, but in Game 7 last year, he was injured. Game 7 last year, he didn't skate out because he was hurt. It's like...
And that's the unpredictability of it, Dog. And that's the frustration that you're talking about. It's like that you're basically talking about Thatcher Demko in Vancouver. Is that player going to be healthy enough to run it? Well, I think every team, Dog, has plan A and plan B. Plan A is, hey, this is our guy. We believe in him. And because it happened last year, we're giving him another crack at it. But at the same time, down the stretch, you're going to have two guys going anyway. But I don't think that means that you alternate, during a playoff series. But I mean, how many times have we seen it that a guy plays great in game 1, great in game 2, struggles in game 3, needs a break. The coach takes him out halfway through, sits him on the bench and says, "Hey, bud, you're going right back in there for game 4. But we're going to get, goalie B in the net for this one here, and let's get you re-energized." It happens an awful lot. And then you just go on again and keep going. But then if the goalie struggles in game 4, well, now you got yourself a question mark, because now you're likely going to the other guy for game 5. That's the facts.
With Darren Pang of the NHL on TNT. So you were between the benches in Chicago last night calling that game, and it was a really fun, entertaining game. Edmonton ends up winning in overtime. Connor Bedard has been a topic of discussion since he was 14 years old. We all knew this kid was coming. We knew what he was doing in the dub, what he did at the World Juniors, first overall. He's into year 2. But he's starting to hear it a little bit, at least from outside of the Chicago market. Where do you stand on his game, the up close and personal, where he's at? And, what would you say to people that are wondering, okay, where are we going with this guy and what's going to happen here in Chicago?
Well, I think first of all, I think he's handled it, Hazy, extremely well. After Mark Messier said something on Saturday, listen, the Florida Panthers, it was a one-dimensional game. I mean, they dominated, especially that first period. And so they picked apart a play that he certainly should have had a stronger stick in front of the net. So I asked him the next day. I had a chance. I'm saying, "Hey, listen, I want to know, do you listen to the analyst, or do you listen to the noise that's out there? Do do people send you something on social media? Are you on social media to watch it?" And he goes, "You're talking about like Mark Messier's comments." I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, he sure wasn't wrong on that one." He doesn't go, "Oh man, Mark Messier, what's he done?" Of course he wouldn't say that. He respects the game, and he respects people's jobs. And he's like, "Yeah, like you don't think I don't know when I make a mistake?" Same thing happened with Paul Bissonnette last night. Biz went through a shift. The shift was bad. It was a bad line change. It was a long shift. It was a turnover in the same area of the ice that had happened before. You guys are analysts. We all sit in the studio. What do you break down? You break down that. And again today, sure enough, what did he say? He's like, I'm not getting, I think he used the word butthurt. If I'm not mistaken,
Okay.
He's like, Biz has got a job to do, and that's his job. And I'm okay with that job. Like, I'm not laying awake, wondering what guys are saying about me. Basically, he's like, I already know before I watch TNT or ESPN or ABC, I already know what I did wrong. I know that was my fault. So I'll say that so people can understand that part of Connor. The reality of it is when those same mistakes happen time and time again, then there's teaching moments that have to take place. And it's great that Connor recognizes that, hey, I can't be button hooking up right inside the blue line of the opposition, spin around and try to make a blind backhand pass to somebody against a good team like Carolina, Florida, and now last night the Edmonton Oilers. And so if you do it time and time again, then I think you got an issue. If he learns from it and doesn't do it again, or it's limited, then you're on the right path, in my opinion. And Doug and Frankie, you guys have played with young players that have come into the league. I mean, a lot of them have junior habits. They're 18 and 19. They come in, they have junior habits. They're used to playing 2.5 minutes. If his coach in Regina, John Paddock, says, "Hey, Connor, we're down by 2. Like, you don't come off the ice." Well, he thinks, that's right in that circumstance. But now in the NHL, when you got Pat Maroon's won 3 Stanley Cups and Alec Martinez won 3 Stanley Cups, and they're all trying to create a winning hockey environment, and that might mean dump the puck in, get it in deep, no turnovers in that area of the ice. Well, then that gets frustrating, certainly for the veteran players. But he's a sharp kid. He analyzes his performance very accurately. I'll say that. So he's as hard on himself as everybody else is on him when he makes mistakes.
Darren, were you surprised there wasn't a follow-up on what does butthurt mean?
It was a little bit fun. I threw it out there, and I'm like, okay, Dog, fire me something up here. Like seriously.
I'm not getting into it, man. I have no idea what butthurt is.
I know. Go on social media. I'm pretty sure that was the quote that he said, and I was.
Okay.
I'm afraid to even Google it. I'm afraid to Google what
Don't do that.
butthurt means.
Don't do that. Not on a work phone.
No.
Stay away from that one.
Line 1, HR, line 1.
Exactly.
Hanger, you've gotten to know this guy pretty well now. You see him every day, games, practices. Do you think there's an element of like he's almost too hard on himself? I know he wants to be professional, wants to take the next step. There's so much noise and pressure, but can he be too hard on himself?
I don't know. I grew up with I grew up with Stevie Y, like from 14, 15, 16, 17. I mean, he didn't have to tell Steve if something wasn't done right. I mean, he was the first one to, to live it and correct it and, do it. Connor's not the first one. Like people talk about Sidney, Connor McDavid, the same thing. These young kids, he doesn't have a dog. You can't go home and pet your dog. I mean, I mean, he loves the game of hockey. He loves sports. In fact, one of the things he said, Frank, was like he likes the criticism or the analysis of plays and breaking down plays. He says Monday morning, because he's a big football fan, he goes, that's what I watch. I want to see what they're talking about with what that quarterback did the next morning. So he's got life away from the game. There's no denying that. But his number one passion is the game of hockey. Listen, last night, he did something special with the Blackhawks. There was a Make-A-Wish young man named Lennox, came in from Nova Scotia. His favorite players were Connor Bedard and Connor McDavid. The Make-A-Wish and the Blackhawks made this happen. So there's Connor after the optional skate. He is on the ice with this kid. He's got him in the locker room. He walks into the building with him. He's a great kid. He's got a lot going on, but yet he finds the time for other things as well. And then I think there's a lot of pressure on him probably to play well for young Lennox and for himself and up against, Connor McDavid. So, and what he ended up with, maybe a point or so. But the guy that was the man-child in this game, I'll just tell you, if you don't have Leon Draisaitl in there for the Hart Trophy conversation, I think you're not watching the game of hockey. And maybe the Selke Award winner too. I mean, the guy's a machine at both ends of the ice. And man, was he snarly last night I didn't know that he and Ilya Mikheyev had a little bit of a battle going on. I mean, they were jawing back and forth, and I was surprised that Mikheyev, he didn't back off one whatsoever. Dog, you would have loved this banter between the two. I believe one of them said, "You do that again, you're going to eat the blade of my stick." It was great stuff, and
That's
both of them
school.
just going right back and forth. And I expected Mikheyev kind of to back off a little bit because he's such a quiet guy. But man, he is a competitor, and he was certainly in the kitchen of Leon until Leon got her going and dominated the game down the stretch.
That comment, regardless, I think it always gets you thinking. Because when I second year in the league, Mark Recchi said that to me. He said, "I'm not playing that much longer. I will break my stick right over your head." And I was thinking, he's not going to do it, but would he do it? And then you're just thinking, like, how crazy is that guy? And you're just wondering the whole game how crazy that guy really is.
Or the worst is if you're like not really tough and you say that and the guy says, "Go ahead and do it." You're like,
yeah. Then you're like, now I got to do it, and I probably won't even break it.
Yeah.
Called my bluff, did you?
That one stings, eh? You never want to see that. All right, Panger. We'll leave it there. We appreciate you doing this as always.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you looking at my pictures and analyzing the net, watching my mask, and just being the great show that you are. You're my dad's favorite show, and he watches you all the time from Fernie, British Columbia. My dad's 88 years old. I'll get an email from him right as soon as I'm off this, and he calls me Joe. My whole family is going to say, "Joe, just watched you again on OverDrive, my favorite show." I'll tell you that. Okay.
We love hearing that. That's amazing. Say hi for us, please. We love it.
Okay.
Thanks,
Take care,
Panger.
you guys.
All right,
Okay,
there he
see ya.
is. Darren Pang joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. And, I mean, listen, Bedard, he didn't create the hype, right? It's a media-driven thing. It's a fan-driven thing. But it's also an incredible compliment when you are being talked about in the same breath as McDavid and Crosby and Ovechkin.
Yes, everybody was touting him to be the next Wonder Boy.
Yeah.
So those other guys, Austin Matthews, Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, they didn't take a step back and have a second year where everybody was asking, what's up with this guy? Why is he having shifts like that? We weren't breaking down. That's why there's people that are caught off guard, because this was supposed to progress like every other wonder kid, where it's like the Blackhawks are making the playoffs in year 2 and they're contenders in year 3. Mm-hmm. That was the progression of the other guys for the most part. Like the Edmonton stunk for a long time, but that was kind of the Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane. It's like really good second-year team close to making the playoffs, make the playoffs, contend. Like that was the progression of other great young kids.
Such a bad roster.
They're horrible.
They're a terrible roster.
Luke Richardson, that guy should be ashamed. Kyle Davidson should be ashamed firing that guy. and coming out and saying, I just didn't view this as a last-place team.
Yeah, they're terrible.
Dude, give me a break,
Bedard was playing with Landon Slaggert and Ryan Donato last night, and on the ice a lot against McDavid.
Think about that.
Yeah, there's you got to be reasonable in terms of what can be expected. The team is not good enough. He doesn't have a guy with him like Malkin was with Sid, like Kane was with Taves, like Draisaitl was with McDavid, where you
think
can pair them.
Those other Wonder Boys.
Here.
Yeah, Matthews had Marner, Nylander, Hyman,
he had
Brown.
JVR and Bozak and all these cadre already
but
here.
other Wonder Kids, if you look at
totally.
it, they would turn
no question
Teuvo Teravainen and Tyler Bertuzzi, and they'd be the best line in hockey.
Yes, like I did a hit on this yesterday, and I thought about it more as like the night went on, because if you look at it, the term generational it's arbitrary, and everyone's got a different definition for it. I would be a stickler on this because you mentioned guys like Matthews and Draisaitl. They were not in the same on the same level of hype. Like if you go back over the last 40 years, I would say it's Gretzky, Lemieux, Lindros, Crosby, Ovechkin, McDavid. There's 6 guys. I think that's 6 that you knew who they were when they were like 13 or 14. Some of them even younger. They got to junior or wherever they played, and they absolutely dominated. You know they were going first overall, Gretzky notwithstanding because he didn't get drafted. And they arrived in the first year, you're like, look at that guy. And by the second year, you said, that's going to be the best player in the league if he's not already. Like, it's a formality. It's done. It's going to happen. It happened with Gretzky, Lemieux, even Lindros. Like, Lindros, obviously the injuries hit, and he didn't peak the way these other guys have. But Eric, I mean, you were in the league. You saw him. By year 2, you're like, it's insane what this guy is. And
literally insane.
Literally insane.
You thought you've never seen anything like it.
Right. And the fact is with Bedard, again, not his fault to be labeled that way, but he deserved it because you knew who he was when he was 13 or 14. He dominated the WHL. It was a lock he was going first overall, and he was going to be the next guy. In year 2, he's going to have probably 23, 25 goals and 65 points. That's not what those guys did. Yeah. So he isn't generational like that, and that's just a fact. That's not being overly harsh. It's just a fact.
But the thing that's tough to digest from that is I watched him in Halifax. I watched him at 2 different World Juniors, and the tournament in Halifax, the World Juniors isn't a joke to perform. Like they always say, there's a cliche. It's a 19-year-old tournament for a reason, because 19-year-olds generally perform well. But this guy did in Halifax. I'd done the World Juniors for 9 years. I'd never seen a guy play like that at any age. He was it was the best performance I'd seen at the tournament.
Right.
And I'm like, this guy's got to be the next guy.
Yeah. And now
he was making people look stupid out there.
Crazy. And that's why, again, the hype was justified. And it's a heavy crown, but it's a crown of honor. Like it's a crown of prestige. Very few guys get it where it's like, look at this guy, it's happening, and watch out. And that doesn't mean he's not going to develop into a great player or a superstar player. But I think the goalposts have moved here. And to be fair to him again, and it has to be pointed out, he's still very young, and that team is horrendous. They're awful, and he gets no help. But is he going to be – could he be Steven Stamkos? Could he have that career? That's a first overall pick, right shot.
I would say that's
pure
a slam
goal scorer.
Slam dunk, he's going to have that kind of career.
You think he'll have the same career?
Stamkos superstar is not generational. Like,
no,
that's
exactly.
Very attainable.
Would you
him.
scored 60 goals, man?
Would you take that
Bedard,
right now?
I think Bedard, if he had, picture Bedard, 25, 26 years old, with an elite playmaker and some good players around him. I think I know he's having a 60-goal season.
Okay.
The thing is, we're even talking about it like it's not a slam dunk. So we've gone from McDavid to Matthews. Now we're at Stamkos. Like they're different levels. So we've already chunked it down a couple levels.
Right.
And Stamkos isn't a slam dunk. This guy scored 60 goals, man.
Well,
I think he scored 40, 50, and 60.
If you're Bedard, if you're Chicago, would you take that right now?
If you're Bedard, would you take that right now? Who says no? The Blackhawks or Bedard?
For the Stamkos career. Captain, leader, scores a million goals.
I think Bedard would say no. I think he would probably still think of himself as wanting to be the best or one of the best, right? At any given time.
Sign me up right now. It's not a loser's mentality, fellas. If you can give me Stamkos right now, It keeps me out of the sewer.
Stamkos is he's a Hall of Famer, great player. Multiple cup winner. Now, never won a Hart, was up for it, scored 60, didn't win it that year. I think lost to Malkin, I believe. But that's the thing. Like, that's the Stamkos is not some guy you look down to. It's an incredible career and a great, great player. But that wouldn't meet, I think, the expectations of what we thought Bedard was going to be. And he's got his whole life and whole career ahead of us. It's all a projection right now.
Crazy, because in 2-3 years, we could be having a totally different conversation.
Totally.
Something could have flipped for him. The team could have turned the corner, and we're talking about it just took him 4 years to get there instead of the 2 that it took. Lindros, Crosby, Ovechkin, McDavid. Well, McDavid hit the ground running. He got hurt that year.
They kind of all did, though.
Yeah.
Like Sid and Ovi had 100 points in their first year. Ovi had 52 goals as a rookie.
Yeah, it's outrageous.
Mario Lemieux, Gretzky, like those guys. Now, again, it seems absurd to put him in that category now. It's unfair almost. Yeah. But that is the generational, like, wow, I can't believe this guy.
You know what else we gotta do?
This guy is going to be unbelievable.
We have to change, like, our barometer for generational, foundational franchise guy, because guys play junior hockey and they have 100 points, and it's like that's the running.
Yeah.
That's the price of doing business for star players in junior hockey.
There's only
now.
one guy in the building that labels people and has the ability and the green light to label them.
Who's that?
He's got a whiteboard.
Quizmaster?
Quizmaster.
Yeah.
How many, okay, quickly, before we go here, how many players do you think he would consider generational over the last 40 years?
6.
2 or 3.
2 or 3?
2 or 3. I don't know.
Really?
Gretzky, Lemieux.
I mean, you got to include
Sid and Ovi.
And then McDavid. You think he may not include Lindros because Eric just didn't. The injuries took it away from him. Eric was though, man. Like that. Oh, like Frankie, you're a little bit younger.
Yeah, I wouldn't have.
When Lindros was coming up, like in the late '80s and early '90s, it was like, look out! Like this kid is coming, and it's going to be absurd what he does. And he did it, to his credit. Like his first 2 years in the league, he had like 40 goals. 90-plus points.
Dude, think about it. He was playing in the Canada Cup on a line with Gretzky as a junior hockey player.
He was 18 at the Gardens playing in the Canada Cup.
Dude, I know
grabbing Swedes with their blue jerseys and throwing them over the glass.
Destroying people.
Dude, destroying.
Yeah.
I know we got to go, but Jason Spezza was another guy coming out of junior hockey. You heard about him.
Big
13,
time.
14, fit like
I was my age. I grew up playing against
right?
Spets. I lived it. Like he jumped up a year when we got to minor bantam. He went up to bantam, and then was in the OHL the next year. Yeah. And we're all in bantam, and we're like, this guy's playing in the OHL.
People could have labeled him generational at that point. Tavares, same thing. I remember seeing John Tavares playing for the Toronto Marlies minor midget, and like 12-year-olds going up to get autographs.
Because you knew what was coming.
Yeah,
exactly. And John's had a great career. Yeah. Spez had a great career. Stamkos, like there's a lot of guys, great careers, Hall of Famers. But to get to the next step is kind of a different world, man. That's where Jordan Spieth was at one point. Generational. I don't know if he is anymore. Are you taking Spieth? Before we let you go, because you're doing panel work tonight. Are you gonna?
I don't appreciate.
Are you putting Spieth back on the list because it's gutless?
You both made me not take him yesterday. I said, Doogie, he's on my team, and I never not took him. I'm taking Spieth.
That wasn't me,
It was me.
Doogie,
I said it was a brutal pick, and then you buckled like gutless behavior,
Doogie,
and now you want him because he's red hot.
I better have Spieth, or I'll be concerned about your past.
I've added him.
Okay,
you have Jordan Spieth.
You get Spieth, I get Jake Knapp.
Are you doing a little nap now?
Go shut her down. Morty
Guys,
Seinfeld.
I got stuff to do. I got
Morty.
prep. I got video. There's
All right,
no way
Morty.
in hell I could do this for 3 hours.
Will
and
Morty
be good tonight during
Seinfeld.
the game.
Will I see you at our little spot before the game?
Pass the toilet paper. We'll chat then.
The two boys just convening in the washroom. All right. We'll catch you on the panel tonight. There he is, Morty Seinfeld joining us here. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Pierre LeBrun coming up. Dave Naylor from New Orleans ahead of the Super Bowl. Raptors losing last night, but very active at the trade deadline. And Brandon Ingram coming to town. And listen, he's a really good player. Really, he's a guy who can score. He's a guy that has a lot of talent. He's a lot of fun to watch play. I think if you're a Raptor fan, from that perspective, there's a reason to be excited for it. And I do think that gets lost a lot. And I'm as guilty as anyone, constantly focused on like team building and championships and all that kind of stuff. We do that all the time. And you lose sight of a lot of times the average fan just wants, a player that's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like I would compare Ingram kind of to Patrick Laine and what he represents in Montreal, where Montreal was an up and coming team, rebuilding team. They wanted talent, they wanted star power. The fans were starved for it. They got it. Laine showed up, can score, veteran guy. Ingram
Sometimes
may
you
be
take
a very
flyer.
similar type of scenario.
But sometimes you just take a flyer and say, like, I'm willing to take the risk because my team is not as far along as, I'd like it to be, or maybe some of the fan base would like it to be. And maybe this gives me something. And I don't know if this one's low risk. I think the Laine one is low risk because you didn't give up much to get him. There wasn't much term there.
Mm-hmm.
You'll wash your hands with it if it doesn't work at the end of the day. But, and you talk about team building. There's probably like a section of the fan base that just says, do everything you can to make us good. Screw it. Like we're not in this for a 5-year, strip it down, build it back up. Just we want to watch exciting basketball night to night and just be aggressive.
Yeah. Well, and that's my stance on where Masai Ujiri is going here. That, we had Lewinberg on last hour, and Josh said, one of the things about Masai was he was overly patient, and it maybe burned him in the end. Looking back on the Van Vliet, Siakam, Anunoby era, and I would argue that what he was really doing was he was terrified of losing. It wasn't that he was patient with the guys he had. He was pushing away losing and pushing away tanking as long as he could. And I think this is another example of how he is just not capable of stomaching that. And I can understand why. He's terrified of the Charlottes and the Detroits and what Washington's going through. And yes, there are examples of teams that bottomed out and accumulated everything and everything worked out for them and they moved in a different direction. Oklahoma City's a great example. Houston, to an extent, had to bottom out after Harden and Paul and all those guys left. And now look where they are. They're moving back up the West this year. They're a very competitive team. But I don't think he is patient. I think he's terrified of losing and terrified of being irrelevant.
Because of what that would do for his reputation.
Yeah.
Because 2019 was a long time ago, right? Like,
yeah, it's a long time ago now.
That's great. Everyone holds you in such high regard. But if you strip it down and then let's say you don't actually know how to do that. You're just not wired to do it. You've never wanted to. And it's like, feels foreign to you. Well, now 10 years down the road, people remember you as the guy that tore down the Raptors and left it torn down.
Right, exactly.
That's what you would be scared of, rather than just, hey, I don't know, I'm losing a few games or having a few losing years. Like, what's your reputation? What are you be known for?
Yeah, exactly. And I think what the goal ultimately is a championship, but you have to be reasonable with that. I think what they're doing here is what they're telling us is they're trying to, as quickly as possible, get to a point where they are competitive and they're in the mix.
I don't mind that, though.
And that's the thing. Without doing something reckless, which they haven't done anything reckless. The Pirtle deal, you still look back and think, okay, what happened there? Why did you wait so long to move on Siakam? Maybe why did you get Ingram? But again, they didn't overpay. They didn't trade something that's really going to burn them. They're not going to give away a pick that's going to turn into the first overall pick in 2 or 3 years. That never happened at any point during this run. Even the Pirtle deal was protected. It stung because you gave up like the 7th overall pick because you weren't that good. It hurt, but it wasn't the first overall pick.
Yeah.
It wasn't as bad as it possibly could be. And I think that's what Masai's trying to do. Get back to a point where you're competitive with as much talent as you possibly can have and a decently balanced roster, and then hope you hit on a couple things that were unforeseen.
Yeah.
Like maybe you win the lottery, or maybe whoever you pick in this draft takes more steps. Maybe Grady Dick keeps growing. Maybe Jacoby Walter turns into something.
Dude,
maybe there's a trade
diamond in the
available
rough
and you can
somewhere. Well, that's
exactly.
the thing. Exactly.
Like, that's his read on the NBA. That's how Masai operates.
Certain things are going to come up and they're going to become available to you. And if you're in the position where you can strike, then you'll do that. But like if the Raptors for the next, call it 5 years, if we work in 5-year segments, if they are somewhere between 5th and 8th in the Eastern Conference every single one of those years, who says no to that? I would sign up for that if I was the Raptors. I'm competitive. I'm in a playoff spot. I have income coming in. Like we're winning. We're keeping fans happy. I don't know if we live in a time right now that the Raptors, we're gonna talk about them in October saying that's the team Celtics are below them, Cleveland's below that. Like it's just
that's the
happening.
dream with a blow it up tank rebuild. That's the dream, and there have been examples of that happening. It doesn't happen often, but there are examples where you go into a dark place for 3 years and then you come out of it and you're at the top, right? And again, Oklahoma City is an example. Now, Oklahoma City was so extreme with some of the deals they made. The Paul George deal fell in their lap. They got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and like 5 first-round picks. Like it was just a horrendous trade for the Clippers. Like it fell in your lap, and Shai turned into an MVP. One of the 4 or 5 best players in the game, and you got all these picks, and it worked incredibly well for you. That's an extreme example. That's a once in a lifetime example. If you're between 5 and 8, that means you're maybe a player or two away from top 3.
Sure.
And I think that's what Masai. This is a glass half full type of mentality, but I'm guessing that's what Masai Ujiri is hoping, that put themselves in a position where they're in the middle of the pack, which means they could be a player or two away from being at the top and being in some sort of a pouncing position.
Yeah.
And is it perfect? No. But is it more likely that works than the other route? Yes, I would say it is.
Yeah.
Right? Like the other one's pie in the sky, dream, tank, you get the best players 2 or 3 years, you load up with a young, and it's tough. That's a dream come true, but it's unlikely that works.
And if he did that, I don't think a lot of people would fault him, because it's like that's kind of the thing that you draw up and you say we're going to build this up and we'll kind of have something that's sustainable. But if something falls into your lap, or you have an ability to do something that you weren't expecting, I kind of respect the fact that you're like, I'm just going to do this and I'll ask the questions afterwards, as long as you're not doing something egregious or taking away from your group, which, clearly you're not doing.
They did not do in this Ingram deal. Like, they obviously, Brown was going to go. Olynyk had no future here. They gave up the Pacers pick in 26. Yeah. They still have their pick this year. That wasn't going anywhere, So they still have some flexibility. Again, I'm not convinced it's going to work to get them to 5 through 8. Like, that's still not a guarantee. But you put forth a lineup with guys like Scotty and a healthy Ingram, which is always something you concern yourself with. Quickly, Pirtle, RJ Barrett maybe comes off the bench. A couple of the kids continue to grow. Okay. You're in a better position than you were certainly to start the year.
Yeah.
In terms of talent and in terms of roster building.
Well,
that's what they're trying to do here.
You also have to keep in mind, like, the summer's going to come around and free agency hits, and you're going to make pitches to some guys. You're not going to get the big guy, let's say. Mm-hmm. But there's going to be guys that have options. And what are you pitching them on? Like, if there's no one there, how you getting anyone?
Right.
At least if you have something here, you have the bones of it to say, like, look, we believe in what we have here. We're on the precipice of being, competitive with the, upper echelon teams in the Eastern Conference, but we need you in order to do that. Look what we have. If you don't have anything, it's like you're not even having those conversations.
Right.
They're hanging up the phone on you.
Exactly. Like, you're a piece that we believe can fit in here, and this is how it works. And now they can possibly do that, because they still need shooting. They still need to defend better. Like, they're going to need a bench. Like, these are all question marks that are still a reality for them, and that's why they're 5th worst in the league. But it's that is what their plan is here, clearly. And whether it works or not, we'll see. It could go the opposite way, where they try to get to 5 through 8 or whatever and be in the middle, and they're just there forever, and then people get sick and tired of that.
Yeah.
And they may look back and say, that was our chance. People were prepared for it. We're going to bottom out. But that's what Masai Ujiri is doing here. He's willing to stomach one bad year, and then he wants to turn it around quickly. All right, Pierre LeBrun coming up. Dave Naylor from the Super Bowl in about 40 minutes. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, we've sent Al's brother out somewhere in the city with a pair of Leaf tickets. You have to guess where he's hiding for your chance to win them. 4th and final clue of the week. Ready to hear and see Al's brother?
Would love to.
Hey, Overdrive fans, happy Thursday to you. I got one final clue to help you find out where I've been hiding at this week to get you those Leafs and Sharks tickets. And here it is. I can guarantee you that you will not leave this place hungry. In fact, I might go get myself one of the world-famous P-Mail bacon sandwiches right now.
Ooh, all right. You don't know where he is?
I didn't hear all the clues this week.
Yeah, I know where he is. I picked up on it, I think, 2 days ago.
I should know.
Very, very famous place. Very famous.
I'm drawing
Okay. All right. Don't worry about it. When you hear the cue to call tomorrow, the first caller through with the correct location wins a pair of tickets to see the Leafs play the Sharks March 3rd. Finehouse Brothers brought to you by McAlpine Ford in Aurora. Our family, the Ford family, and you. You gotta know this spot, man.
JP told me.
JP loves this place.
Oh yeah, he's right there. He walks over.
He lives right down there,
Yeah,
man.
he's
JP's
in the
always
mix.
kicking around. He's basically the mascot for that place. Him and Al's brother.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Okay.
I was actually thinking of a place near this place.
You were thinking up here.
No, a place near the place.
Oh, I
my
see.
brother is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Pierre LeBrun, Dave Naylor, and our best bets still to come. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.